Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update. Viewpoint.
Money FM 89.3. Now, when we talk about Singapore's F&B sector, the headlines are usually about rising costs, manpower shortages, or the latest dining trends. But behind the kitchen doors, there's another story. Long hours, leadership isolation, constant operational stress, all of which take a real toll on the mental health of owners, operators, and workers. So here's the question we rarely ask. Who takes care of the people who feed us? This week, the Restaurant Association of Singapore is launching its first ever Wellness Day, bringing together F&B leaders and mental health organizations. So could this mark the start of a cultural shift, not just in kitchens, but in how Singapore approaches workplace wellness more broadly? Joining me live for today's Viewpoint is Edward Chia, MP and RAS Management Committee member. Edward, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Lynlee.
You've been in this industry for years, Edward. When you look at the day-to-day reality for F&B owners and workers, what does that stress actually look like and feel like on the ground?
Well, I think first of all, the F&B industries, we delight in providing joy for our customers. But at the back of delivering this joy, you have a whole team of very hardworking people. Often they work very, very long hours. And I think it's sometimes really, very tough on them mentally and emotionally. So I guess we're very, very pleased that today the Restaurant Association of Singapore recognizes that while business resilience is important, we must also support our people, leaders in the organization, on their mental wellness and resilience as well. And that's why together with community partners, in Singapore, Total Wellness Initiative Singapore, and the PAP Mental Health Group, we have launched a wellness initiative on World Mental Health Day for owner-operators in the F&B. We really support them so they can support their people and continue to delight consumers in Singapore.
It's something diners don't often see, but it's happening behind every plate that is served. Why do you think mental wellness has lagged so far behind in F&B compared to other industries?
I would say the F&B sector has very, very unique settings. So first is there is a lot of sacrifice on the personal time of operators because when the restaurant's busy, it's oftentimes where families get out and they get together. So they have to be at the workplace, they have to be with the team. And that also means for them, they sacrifice time with their loved ones. So lesser support, lesser time with their loved ones often also builds up the stress because there isn't a decompression time. Second, because of multiple shifts, they tend to work very long hours as well. So putting all of that together, there is very little time for them to decompress. And especially for the leaders, because they're just soaking up all that pressures, it also at times lead to leadership isolation. And the challenges are very unique. It's also very hard for them to reach out to friends because the friends who are not within the same industry will have very different working hours. And sometimes it just isn't finding the right time slot to just catch up, and all that builds up.
That culture of tahan, of just soldiering on seems deeply ingrained, especially in this industry. What do you make of that?
You're right, Lynlee. I think it's our Singapore culture that we must tahan, we must push through, we must remain stoic, especially for the leaders of the organization, for the boss, the owner operator. They have to appear calm, appear strong in front of their team. And I would say in some ways good because you need strong leadership, you need to have steady hand. At the same time, but you also need to have a support network. And that's why for this particular launch of program, the Restaurant Association, we felt that the starting point has to be the leaders, the owner operators. We support them so that they well, so that they could actually care for their employees. So typically we prefer things to be ground up, but in this particular instance, we are taking a top-down approach. We focus on caring for the leaders, the owner operators, supporting them, and then eventually they will cascade wellness down to their team members.
Indeed. I think when you're firefighting every day in such an industry, because it's extremely operational, wellness can almost feel like a luxury, you get to later, right? Later almost never comes.
Indeed, and I will also say from personal experience and having chats with friends in the industry, there's also this sense of guilt because there's always something to do. There's always a fire to go out. There's always an issue. And if they were to take a step away from the business for their own wellness, to take a time out, there is the sense of guilt that That means I can't cover a shift, and one of my team members will have to work longer hours, and they have the sense of guilt. But when they are at the workplace and they miss out on times with their families and friends, then there's also the guilt that they're not spending enough time with their loved ones. So either way, they're always having a sense of guilt and stress. So that's really where the pressure point is. Because for most, maybe other types of vocation, where working hours are a bit more regular, everybody decompresses at the same time, family and friends can get together at the same time. But for those working in F&B industries where their loved ones and families are having a bit of time to just catch up, they will have to work doubly hard.
So you think it's mainly structure, not really stigma?
I would say it's structure first, understanding that the industry has its norms, that the off-peak times are different for other industries. And I would say also leadership isolation is not unique to the F&B industry. I would first also say there are many industries that are also facing their own pressure. Where RAS is coming in to work together with the community partners is to first recognize that the industry is unique in terms of structure, in terms of operating hours, and then how can we support the owner-operators and creating a safe space where they could confide each other, have chats, and journey this together. And that's why, as part of the launch day, we are launching the RAS Makan Buddies, where owner-operators can buddy up through a structured 6-month program, support each other in this journey, creating better wellness.
Okay, can you tell us more about that?
So the RAS Makan Buddies program, it's a peer support program. We recognize for owner-operators, sometimes there's isolation, challenges they face. It's hard for them to confide their team members because sometimes it might not be fully appropriate to be sharing about their challenges, business challenges. So the Restaurant Association felt that it was good for owner-operators who may share similar challenges to create a program where there's a safe space, but it's also guided. So it's a 6-month program. There's a specific guide on what each session aims to chat about, and it's very much contextualized to the industry's challenges. So for example, the first session could be just getting to know each other. Questions could be, how do you end up in F&B? What was your inspiration of getting into the F&B industries, and how has it been so far? What are the high points? What are low points? And then the next one could be talking about manpower. How do you deal with manpower challenges? And it's a sharing. There's no right or wrong answer, but it's just two buddies catching up, having a makan and sharing. And then could be another month that the topics would be money matters, financial matters. So I think it's a very unique program because it's an industry association, a trade association, restaurant association of Singapore, working with mental health organizations with expertise, but putting together a peer support program that's contextualized for the F&B industry. At the end of the day, our message to F&B owner-operators is that come forward, you're not alone, let's create a community.
Okay, that's just one of a few new initiatives, I gather. I've also heard about the Bon Appetit, Bon Esprit toolkit.
That's right. So the toolkit was created because we recognize that F&B professionals are already very busy. They're working long hours. They might not have the time to take a time out to attend a workshop. So this is a toolkit that's online, it's easily accessible, and importantly, contextualized for the F&B industry. And there are practical scenarios and support. So for example, the toolkit shares about, okay, if one particular staff member or team member has encountered a particularly difficult customer and might be being shouted at, how do you deal with that scenario? First, how do we manage the situation with a particular customer? Then after that, how do we support the staff member who was at the opposite end of that situation? So the toolkit provides a very practical guide on dealing with specific stress scenarios in the F&B settings.
Wow, it sounds really good and refreshingly, almost practical, very practical kind of initiatives that you're launching today. Now, Edward, we were talking about how tough the F&B industry is, but because it's so visible and community-driven, could it actually lead a wider workplace wellness shift in Singapore?
I hope so. I truly believe that we would want to have more advocacy and more wellness programs in all workplaces in Singapore. And you are right, F&B industry is highly visible. There's one thing that Singaporeans can all say we love, is we love food, we love hanging out with each other over a makan. And I hope what we're doing, RAS is doing within the F&B industry could also set a positive ripple effect in other industries. We hope that this is also the first of many collaborations with Industry Trade Association, where we bring together mental health community partners, collaborating with trade association, and really go sector by sector, dissecting, understanding the nuances, and creating mental wellness support programs that is highly relevant to specific issues.
Oh, I'm really happy that it's not just a one-off event, but a movement where owners and people in the industry are supporting each other and their teams as well.
You're right. It's a movement.
Okay, almost like rewriting the culture from within, one conversation at a time. Edward, what happens next? How do you make sure, there is a real shift in how the industry operates?
I think what happens next after today's launch is to have this information out to as many of our members as possible and start pairing up the buddies and operationalize the buddies program and having the toolkit easily made available for our members. I would say it's a start, it's a journey. We will continue to seek feedback from our members who are going through these programs. If there are any specific scenarios that will need additional support, I think that's where RAS will lean on other partners to curate further programs. I would say it's also important that we all step forward. The important message is that you are not alone. I know it can be challenging running an F&B business. You're certainly not alone. Come forward. The Restaurant Association of Singapore is building this community, and we're all here to support each other, and we can all live on each other.
And perhaps this would change how Singapore thinks about wellness at work, starting in the kitchen. Edward, thank you so much for this thoughtful conversation. Mental health in F&B isn't often discussed. It's not discussed enough, I think, but it's foundational to the resilience of the sector and arguably to Singapore's food culture itself. Maybe this is the moment we must start caring for the people who feed us.
Yes, and if I want to appeal, perhaps as we all go out over the weekend to dine at our favorite restaurants, I think as customers, we can also support this movement by actually just being a nice customer. And sometimes if the service staff is doing a good job, a simple praise, a simple appreciation will go a long way to the F&B's team's mental wellness. So let's encourage each other and let's continue to support each other, even when we are customers.
Edward Chia, thank you so much for your time today. Edward is the management committee member of the Restaurant Association of Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynlee. Thank you.
Money FM